Hey, that's that critical hit I'm talking about. What is going on, everybody? I hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, Arvanauts, to a Saturday night stream. It is about 6:20 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Welcome to episode 12 of Masters of the Dungeon. This is the conclusion of a year's worth of shows of this D&D panel show, which is pretty neat because I have been looking forward for a long time to having a chance to do a show like this, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to more of these to come in the future. So I'm looking forward to this show tonight. Before we get into that, though, a couple of reminders about ways to support the stream. If you have not already done so, please consider following the channel. That is always a big help. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to check out the YouTube channel. ! ArvTube will get you over to past broadcasts of this and other shows. ! Arv Tweets will get you over to my Twitter, where you can check out my musings about various things in terms of teaching, in terms of family, in terms of writing, in terms of politics. Fair warning, I do talk about that because politics is important over there too. And then, of course, about streaming and things like that. So you can catch me over there. Would love to see folks there. I just got to 900 followers, which was kind of a neat milestone. I'm like, oh, check that out. So that was cool. ! Tweet, while I'm on the subject of tweeting, will allow you to retweet the stream to all and sundry. That would be a big help if you're able to do that. Let other people know outside the Twitch community about what's going on over on our show here. And then the shop, ! Arv Shop, allows you to go over and support us by checking out some of the merchandise there. Right now, it is just Infinity and Beyond stuff, but that is going to be changing to include Assignment Impossible and also to include some Esper Genesis stuff down the line. Maybe even a couple of other surprise things that we might be able to add. But anyway, you'll be able to get more merchandise there. Cool stuff for you, cool stuff to support the channel. Same thing happens, by the way, with supporting the Patreon. We are currently sitting at $398.96. A lot of cool stuff that does. First of all, that's really the financial backbone of the channel, so that really allows us to do things like, pay various people for stuff that they do for overlay, for graphics, and other sorts of things. And then a lot of cool stuff that you can get for yourself, including epic poems and character backgrounds and all that kind of good stuff written for you. So that obviously helps if you're able to support that with ! Arvtreon. And then last but certainly not least is that sub button. We are currently sitting at about 54 subs or so. Our record level was 60 subs, and we're moving towards heading back towards that. So thank you very much if you have done that already. And don't forget, by the way, that sub will allow you to, if someone gifts you a sub, you can renew that sub from now until September 30th. You can renew that sub for a single $1, and you can tack on another 30 days at the end of that. So that would be awesome if you could do that. And thanks everybody for being here. Schedule-wise, we've got Masters of the Dungeon up now. Then I'm going to be continuing after the show's over with some Lone Wolf HD Remastered, which is a lot of fun, or has been so far. On Tuesday, I'll be doing the Chat Chosen Game of the Month, which Chat decreed would be Lego Lord of the Rings, so that'll be a good time. And then I will be doing the debut release stream of Pathfinder Kingmaker. I'll be doing that over on my GOG Pen and Pixel show at 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. So 12 p.m. on this channel for Lego Lord of the Rings, then Pathfinder Kingmaker over there. And then next Friday, we've got some Esper Genesis on the docket. Just added a new player yesterday, Carlos Hernandez. That was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, by the way, for the following. Twilight's Falling. Welcome to the Arvanauts. And then on Saturday, I think we are wrapping up Lone Wolf HD Remastered, if I'm not mistaken, on Saturday, and that will also wrap up the month of September. A lot of announcements that I'll be able to make about stuff soon on the publishing front, but I can't talk about them yet, but we're closing in on being able to do that, so that is going to be a good time. However, with all that said, the time has now come. I'm going to unmute myself so the gentlemen know that we're just about ready to go, and then I'm going to unmute them, and then I'm going to head over to them. Dun, 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 dun. That sound effect provided to you by Dave. Welcome, everybody. It is Masters of the Dungeon, and I am very happy to have my usual amazing panel of people with me, our two regulars with me, and a very special guest. Starting right below me in the column, we have got Dave, who was, provided you that special effect. I hope you all appreciated it as much as I did, and clearly as much as he did too. That is, of course, Dave from the Digital DM. Dave, how you doing? How's life? How's the universe and everything on your end, sir?
Everything's going good, Greg. Good to see you. Another great vodcast we're gonna have today. So yeah, I've just got done moving within the last week or so, less than a week. I got a new place. Gonna be hopefully within the next couple months converting my garage into a studio and stuff. So yeah, it's been going good. As you can see, there's nothing on the shelves yet. It's just bare bones. My camera's all borked. My video isn't as good as it used to be. Well, it is, and my audio isn't as good either because I don't have my studio mic. So kind of every time I touch my desk, there you go. The I don't even have the camera mounted. It's just sitting on my desk. So, oh my gosh, it's an earthquake here in El Paso. We're gonna die. Constitution saving throws. So, but yeah, everything's going good. My games are in hiatus for a little while longer, probably another couple weeks, 3 weeks, till I can get all of this situated. And yeah, everything's good to go though, Greg. Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. Then of course you'll be the source for all El Paso live role playing. I mean, that's so you go to Texas, you'll have to contend with that.
Dungeon Masters.
It'll be good times. But good to have you on as always, Dave. Moving right across over, we have the second regular, of course, who's with us every month, and that is our good friend Askren from Exploding Dice. What's up, Askren? How's life with you, man? How's the life, the universe, and everything? What have you been up to as of late?
How's it going, man? Always a pleasure to be here. Getting a chance to disconnect from whatever's going on and sit down and talk dungeon mastering stuff. As anyone who knows me knows that talking DM stuff and opining on these mysterious topics of gaming and the world around us are they're my true love. I don't know, things have been kind of quiet. Most anyone who's been watching may have noticed I've been sort of off social media, away from Discord for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Our schedule on the channel just kind of evaporated as shows ended and everything sort of went on hiatus. So I'm just sort of not around. I'm in the ether. I'm not DMing, I'm not really streaming, but I am popping up on some people's shows here and there, doing guest spots and getting a chance to roll dice, so I don't completely lose touch with gaming. But yeah, I'm just sort of taking a break and enjoying mowing the lawn. I'm doing a lot of mowing the lawn.
Well, I'm glad that you've had a chance to make us one of the places where you popped up to be able to contribute. So always good to have you on board, man. And last but certainly not least, someone who should be familiar to people in this channel, because not only is he familiar to everybody on Twitch, but he's also familiar to folks here as the face of Benjamin Voss on Assignment Impossible on this channel. And that, of course, is Grimjack21502, also known as Greg, which never confuses us at all. It's a good thing I have a pseudonym just in case. But what's up, Greg? How are you? Thank you for being with us. How's life been with you these last few weeks, months, etc.?
It's been well, Greg. Thank you very much for having me. And to just mirror what the other guys said, I'm here to talk a little bit about the DM GM process, but more importantly, I'm here to listen to everybody else talk about it, write down notes so I can get better at it. This
or worse.
Or worse.
Yeah, anything I can beg, borrow, or steal here to be able to put more into this hobby that we all love. It's absolutely something that I would gladly spend any amount of time doing, but more importantly, I would gladly spend it on this channel with you, my friend. So let's talk, let's have fun. I've got a coffee and a glass of wine.
And a Carpe Diem hat, so we're good to go. I was commenting on that.
That's rock, man.
Yeah, man, I love it. And actually, I'm going to start with you because, as we usually do, we like to highlight something that happened in a recent campaign of ours that we're either playing in or GMing that we were just like, that was incredibly badass. So sometimes people have only one thing that they have and then sometimes they're like, oh my god, I have like 15 things, but they have to pick one. So is there one thing that's happened to you as of late in one of the campaigns that you run, things like that you're like, that's awesome and I want to talk about it at all on the show?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I just actually had a season finale for my Pulp Cthulhu campaign today, Project Kronos. The sister show, Project Athena, has their finale tomorrow night at 7 to 9 Eastern. But today I took my fantastic cast on a bit of a time swap. The entire season has been shot in 2 time periods. The younger versions of the players in 1915, their older, more experienced versions in 1933.
Super cool idea, by the way. Really cool idea.
Oh, thanks. And we were jumping back and forth at the finale where the past was affecting the future and the future was affecting the past. And as they made changes and did things, both sides were reflected. It was my players are to be able to take on the role of not playing just one character with passion, but 2 different versions of a character with passion at different ages in their lives. is fantastic. I couldn't ask for a better group to do that, and they knocked it out of the park today, and it was very, very fun. I had the best seat in the house for it. So
yeah, that's awesome. It's funny, every time anyone comes on to talk about this, I don't think I've ever had, and this is now our by the way, guys, Askren and Dave, this is the end of a year's worth of these shows, believe it or not. We've been doing this for a year now, which is hard to believe. But I don't think in any, we've had, I believe, 11 or 12 guests so far. And I don't ever think in any of the people that we've talked to that I've ever got anyone to be like, yeah, my players kind of were not great. But, everyone is always just like, my players are amazing. And we're no different. I mean, like, I adore, my players. So I guess there must be there's something very nice and protective that we all have about our players. Like, no, my people are the baddest ass of all players. So anyway, it just struck me that like everyone really loves the people that play with them, and maybe that's because the players in general are all better because they're watching more of it and stuff like that, or maybe we've mellowed as we get older, or maybe it's true that we just have awesome people that we play with. But I'm always struck by that that everyone really loves the players that they're in. So but that's cool.
It's in my opinion, it's 100% trust, because as a player, when I create a character that I'm vested in, you put a lot into the backstory. You want it to work. You want the character to be something in the particular story or narrative that's being placed. My players do all of that, and they trust me that no matter what horrific, especially with Cthulhu, horrific shit I do to them, they're like, all right, cool, yep, I love my character, and you're messing them up real bad, but let's go. Let's tell the story. And I can't appreciate that enough, especially when you have like in between sessions, the DMs are flying about what to do and how to react. Passion in the player is something that is part of the hobby now, and it is fantastic. It's just the best thing, really.
Yeah, it's awesome. I dig it. And Twilight's Falling apparently agrees with you that they hit it out of the park. So that's pretty awesome. Cool. Well, let me move down to Askren. Askren, I know you said you haven't been up sort of out and about on the Twitches with this, but I know that you've still got your home game that you're doing and stuff like that. Is there something that has, and you've had a lot of stories from them actually about cool stuff that's happened in that. Do you have a new one or recent one from that crew?
Yeah, I have. I mean, there are some, like, I've gotten a chance to do some stuff with groups sort of in recent times. The three games that come to mind are all different, but they're all things that I've kind of always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
The first is, as you mentioned, my home game. I have a lot of stories for them, mostly because I feel like that group has been going so long, and I just, our story just touches on so many different things that I get to experiment with a lot of methods of storytelling, whether it be pitting them against horrible monsters or pulling really strange things out from under them. I have been really, really quiet about what's been going on in that game, mostly because I know those players follow me on Twitter, so I can't reveal the truth. But you guys in chat can know they have come back into contact with an NPC who's been watching them since literally the beginning of the campaign. They picked a dagger that was actually a shapeshifted snake creature that was used to spy on them, because this noble that they've sort of worked for, sort of had plans to kill, he's sort of been lording over them, is actually a Rakshasa. And now they had to go get a player who got teleported into his dungeon again, sort of by accident. They had to go get him back, which means they had to go back in contact with this NPC. And it allowed me to use his manner to sort of like divide the party up. A lot of illusion magic, a lot of like doors closing behind people or being teleported this way and that way. So I get to split the party up. And as they're all split up, I've been having both this Rakshasa and his sister, who's not actually his real sister, his fake sister, coming to different party members and making deals with them based on what they either want to accomplish. Like, for example, one player wants to get his former or his lover back. She has been kidnapped as far as he is aware, and the Rakshasa apparently said he has her in custody, but he's also going to burn down the dude's manor back home. The other player was trapped in the dungeon, and he was like on the brink of death, and he needed a way out. And so these two Rakshasas are essentially offering deals to the party, so that the party members will work to kill the other one, like the other Rakshasa, but they're not supposed to tell the rest of the group that they've made this deal. So essentially, like that, my goal is I'm slowly kind of pitting the party's motives against each other. So none of them really are able to say exactly why they're proposing a course of action, but they really need to get it done. And so that's something I've been experimenting with, and it's been a tremendous amount of fun. Because as anyone who's seen my games knows, I love to mess with my players psychologically by dangling things that are super important to their characters in front of them and then dragging them away into the darkness. And this has allowed me to do that. The only other thing I wanted to say was Razor Coast finale was really interesting because I got to take force the entire party to surrender their boat and their freedom to a larger and more powerful crew of pirates and essentially get press ganged. And so I don't know if that show is going to come back, but I know if it ever does, it's a super interesting story place to start mid-campaign, but they're press ganged into the service of a ruthless pirate. And so
nice. It's a good setup for future, adventures one way or the other.
That was the plan, but it just happened to be at the finale.
Nice. That's awesome. That's good stuff. The Rakshasa plays a very prominent role in Ghost of Dragonspear Castle, and the Rakshasa creatures. And I've always thought that's a creature that doesn't get enough sometimes attention. It's basically a demonic Khajiit, and like there's a lot that you can do with those creatures because of how cunning and clever they are. They can be good stand-ins if you feel like working them through. So that's pretty cool. I have once in a while I've had a chance to DM using a Rakshasa NPC, and that's always a good time. So
I just want to before I pass it over, I just want to say to any DM, and I don't know if we're gonna have time to delve into it this episode, but if you plan on using a Rakshasa in your game, remember they need 2 payoffs. The first payoff, like you build up to them, but the first payoff is when the party discovers that they're a Rakshasa and fights them, and the second payoff is when they come back later in the campaign to ambush the party. It has to happen. You cannot kill a Rakshasa and not have them come back.
Oh yeah,
that's literally the entire point of them.
Yeah. No, they have to be considered a foe. That are you like? Did I get him? Did I really get him? Did I really get him? It has to be one of those ones for sure. Yeah, no, I agree. But they're especially played well as creatures that are always potentially one step ahead. They're very good, sort of super villainish type characters, but good stuff. Well, Dave, I know that you said your games have been on hiatus as of late. Do you have any like one from the moment after it went or before it went into hiatus that you want to bring up here? Oh wait, sorry. Let me my bad. Let me unmute you. Hold on. I know what I'm doing. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's no problem. Basically, I've been running two games. We converted Tomb of Annihilation over to 50 Fathoms.
I remember that, yeah.
Savage Worlds. So we've been playing that. It's been going really well. And I've also started running Against the Aeon Throne, which is the new Starfinder AP. It's a 3-book series.
Oh, cool.
We've actually got almost through with book 1 already. Book 2 just came out. I think with my subscription, I think it's being mailed now. But the games are on hiatus. We're going to start playing again next month, and I'm also wanting to dive pretty deep into Pathfinder 2 as well. I like all of the changes, and I like what I've seen and what I've read so far. And we're going to be doing that as well. So I just need to get everything here situated first. Maybe taking the rest of the month off to getting everything else put together and built. And, my mother moved out here as well. So, she has some medical issues and Parkinson's and stuff. So it's going to be challenging to try to balance everything in there. But I think it can be done. But I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to getting the games back up and going because that's what I love to do. And, be doing that and probably within the next month or so.
Yeah, that's good. It'll be good. I think our next show will actually have some exciting stuff coming from you as far as that's concerned. So that's good. I have I noticed a couple of people, and it's funny that it's Echo and the original Taco because they both played in this. the D&D with viewers game that I do every other month is always a lot of fun. It was actually the first time that Echo had ever played D&D, sort of in front of a live studio audience type of thing, and he did very well. And it was just sort of fun to see. There's a kind of I hate to make this sound like nostalgic and stupid, but there's something kind of pure about just people finally getting into the characters and seeing that kind of wow factor, which I remember very well from the first module I ever played, which I've talked about on here before, which is Keep on the Borderlands back in 5th grade, and being just having no idea about mechanics or anything else, just being like, wow, this is cool. And there's goblins. What is, great. Can I go into the keep? What does that mean? That sounds awesome. So I totally, always think about that. So it was cool. But the thing that I wanted to highlight was I've had 2 new player additions over the last few weeks. One of them was yesterday in my Esper Genesis campaign. We introduced a new player played by speculative fiction author Carlos Hernandez, who was did a really great job kind of investing his character. He's playing a Volno, which ironically enough is itself a cat-based race. And he introduced himself to them. He was a stowaway on this ship that they have kind of stolen, and he appears and then he pretends to be more like a feral cat than something that can actually speak, because he basically doesn't know whether he can trust them. So he has this note that is supposedly given to him by his keeper about this disease that he has, and the party totally was into that. They're like, okay, so they bring him up to the bridge, and then finally they come under attack by something, and so he breaks from that, and he's like, okay, fine. They start talking, and their reaction, like all of them are like holding up the laser pistols, like, that is not cool. Who the hell are you? What do you mean? He's like, this isn't the time to talk about it. It was just, everyone sort of went with it. It was really well done. Johnny in particular, who has been on this show a number of months ago, Johnny Pittman, Video Store Cowboy, played that out really well. So it was fun to see him. And then the other one was Margaret Crone, who some folks will know on Twitch here, who has joined us for my Curse of Strahd campaign. She's great. I mean, not only is she a good role player, but she has the cosplay thing down. So she is basically plays a Vistani woman. So she's got this full gypsy outfit with the whole. It was really impressive. And her enthusiasm, like her level of interest and enthusiasm, is just off the hook good. And so she was a great addition. And in both those cases, the party was like, wait, who's this new person who's just come in? So that was really cool. So 2 things that I wanted to highlight there. I really have been enjoying kind of seeing those campaigns, and all the campaigns have been great. But those 2 in particular, I was thinking about, I was like really sort of excited to see how the party reacted to that. All right, well, let's throw a topic out there, and then what? You got to give me a minute, okay? I'll come in. So let's throw a topic out there first, and then I'm going to go see what I'm being called about. And I want to ask about. I wanted to talk a little bit about narrative or fiction first, and let me fiction first versus more crunchy games, and I want to set this up if I may. So I did on my Speculate podcast, which has now become a Real Play podcast. We just started releasing the first few episodes, which was an Eberron one-shot that I ran for a set of authors, and now we're going to be releasing a set of the session I played, which was Blades in the Dark. Now, I have never played Blades. I've only seen it being played. And as I was looking at it, as I was playing it, I had a good time with it. My partner in crime, Mike Underwood, is the one who actually did the GMing for it. But the reality is that I was thinking about it with my GM brain as I was playing it, and I'm like, there is a lot you have to remember in that system. And I don't even mean mechanically, although there's partly that. You just have to do so much balancing of the fiction, of the narrative, of the constructing, I'm going to put this forward, that forward, that I was like, it struck me that it would be, there's no way to me that a brand new GM could take it on. Now, some of my fellow players were like, oh no, it's actually really well suited to it. And I'm like, I mean, God bless you, but to me, that seemed like a whole lot if you were an inexperienced GM. And it got me thinking about this difference between narrative-driven, fiction-driven work, more mechanical, crunchy sort of game systems, and then this, which seemed to be trying to combine them. You know, Harper's a very dedicated designer, and he's a very sort of tight designer that tries to put this stuff together. So it seemed to me he was trying to provide some crunch as part of a fiction sort of first narrative-based system, as opposed to, let's say, what Greg plays with me, the modified Wilderness of Mirrors, which is very fiction and narrative-driven and does not have a lot of mechanical crunch, and something like, 3.5 earlier Pathfinder, which was a lot more crunchy, and stuff like that. So I guess the question I wanted to throw out there was, what do we think about in terms of, first of all, do we have preferences about, do we prefer more narrative based or more sort of like mechanical crunchy? And is it possible to square that circle where we can have mechanically crunchy systems that also provide kind of narrative, foundations and flow where you're really working through story? I'm just curious about the sort of tension, if there is one, how we combine those things together. Are there systems that were like, this does it perfectly or not? I'm just curious about that. And you guys should start talking about it. I'm going to go find out what I'm being called for. So,
I kind of want to open by asking, I guess, what exactly does it mean to be like, is there a difference between narrative and crunch, right? Is there inherently a difference? And can obviously a system can be very crunchy, but does that mean it precludes sort of like, so I suppose the question is, do you prefer systems that eschew more complex descriptions of situations for which there are specific rules? For example, Pathfinder has lots and lots of rules that describe lots and lots of very specific situations. What to do if you're summoning this thing, but you get punched in the face in the middle of your summon. So what do you have to roll? Whether you keep the spell or lose the spell. Whatever. There's a lot of things, very specific things that there are rules for, but there is not a specific description of what about how characters might hash out an argument, how you might be forced to come to a settlement between two characters. I don't necessarily think that it is impossible to have the two. Having kind of experience with systems like Mouse Guard, where the mechanics, the crunch, is designed very specifically to make you think about the situation and the story that you're telling, and how to kind of complicate those and upset those, and how it might be more challenging for your character, things like that. I think it's kind of a divide that we're bridging now, because people care more about those deeper story aspects, right? The kind of story they're telling, and being able to collaborate on it together. I don't know much about Blades in the Dark in that sense. Like, I've only played it once, and I will be honest, I didn't understand any of the rules to it. I just pretended I knew what I was doing. But from some other systems, I can say that I think there are interesting ideas that sort of narrative as a focus brings. I don't know. What do you guys like? Do you guys have any experience with these kind of systems?
I think that the number one thing that I would do whenever if a group of people, hey, let's play a game, it's the same thing as whenever you're just asking, or you're asked a movie. You have to know the players, know the audience.
Sure.
And I think that plays so. I mean, you said it perfectly, that this hobby has evolved. It started off as a tabletop war game, a ton of rules,
yeah,
and it's gotten to the point where it's gone back to the campfire, where it's I'm going to tell the story. There, you take the ball and tell the story for a little bit. At least in my opinion, a lot of the systems that are coming out, even the ones that have a ton of mechanics and crunch to them, they give you a window for narrative that I don't think they ever would have 10 years ago.
Sure,
I don't think
absolutely.
There wouldn't, if Blades in the Dark had come out 10 years ago, you wouldn't have so much depth on the city of Duskfall. This incredible lore that Harper came up with for, what to do in the perpetual gloom of a city. And that in and of itself is off-putting whenever you're trying to start people off, because you need to know a lot of this stuff to make it truly immersive and things like that. So I think just know your audience. If somebody really wants to roll some dice, hell yeah, man, let's roll some dice. You want to tell a story? Hell yeah, man, we can tell a story. And you can tweak anything up nowadays. So
I think that's my only hiccup with Blades in the Dark is playing the game, to me, felt so dependent on knowing what's going on. And to be fair, my dungeon master was Johnny, and he was so immersed in sort of the lore and building the lore of this world, because he was DMing like 3 different games of Blades in the Dark for like a whole year. So it's like you have a DM who, it's essentially to me in the D&D equivalent, it'd be the equivalent of someone who is like literally been reading the Forgotten Realms books since the day they came out, and he comes up, he's like, hey, I'm gonna DM a Forgotten Realms game. You're like, I don't know what the fuck, I don't know any of these characters he's naming. I don't know who they are. I don't know why I'm supposed to care, because I've never read any of them. So Blades, that was kind of a hiccup for me. But I think you're right in the sense that like, I don't necessarily know if this is a product of streaming or podcasting, but I think it has definitely been a part of it, right? And I think we all learned a very long time ago that it's not necessarily fun to listen to someone describe the rules for which they are rolling a die, right? I don't like listening to, I play Pathfinder, but I don't like listening to someone flip through a rule book and finding out what bonuses or penalties they have to their concentration check for a couple minutes. I do it in my home game. It's not very fun to listen to. I would much rather listen to people tell an interesting character story, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I do when I'm running games. I try not to look anything up. I'll say, okay, we'll do it this way for now, and then let someone take a note. We'll look it up after, and then we'll change it later on. But to go with, do you want more grit, or do you want more, storytelling, role playing stuff? There's a lot of variables involved in this, in my opinion. First off, can the DM do it? I mean, that's because DMs, they just want to, and I've seen this on Twitch and podcasts, they just want to kick indoors and roll initiative. They don't care about, and I'm talking DMs, they don't care about story. They don't, their description is, okay, there's a 12 by 12 room with 4 orcs, roll initiative. That's pretty much what I've heard on some streams and some pod. That's not my way of doing things, but hey, that early days of D&D, that's how it was.
Right.
When I was a kid growing up, that's how it was. And some people just will not adapt to the different versions. And one perfect example is D&D 4th edition. I personally love D&D 4th edition. It has the crunch that you talk about. It has the rules mechanics, and it's not as rule heavy as 3.5, and it's just a little bit more rule heavy than 5e. Mm-hmm. But the DMG in DMG1, DMG2, and in the player's handbooks, there are chapters on role playing. Believe it or not, for 4th edition, everybody says, "Oh my God, the Sky's Fallen D&D 4th edition is a video game on paper." I mean, that is the worst cop-out excuse that I've ever heard.
That's actually a taped recording of my voice saying exactly that. No, I'll tell you what I do. I say.
I'll tell you what, Cletus and Poop.
I don't understand video games.
You want to know what? Go ahead.
Never played 4th edition, so they go what other bloggers or that have 2 people reading what they're writing,
right,
or other people saying, "Oh, I just hate 4th edition." They've never played it. I've actually taken 4th edition, had the crunch, and also the story. I ran a 4th edition campaign for over a year, and we got to Paragon, and my players thought it was 5th edition for a little while before I actually said, "Hey, we're playing 4th edition," and they were like, "Well, let's keep playing," because I actually tricked them first, and then we just kept playing and playing. But it all depends on the DM. You have to know your players, just
right.
Like Greg said, going into it. What type of game do you want? What kind of game does your players want? So I like to try to do everything as a mix, 50-50. So that's how I try to run things, both crunchy and also story driven. And when I'm in like story mode and storyteller mode, I don't give 2 shits about mechanics. Seriously. Half of the time, I won't even do rolls. If I know that they've got a certain particular skill, I'm like, yeah, you just automatically know this, or yes, you can just automatically do that. So a lot of variables. That's just my input on it. But I like both. I like storytelling and I like crunch. But I'll tell you what, when I first got into DMing 5 years ago, even though I've been playing since 84, excuse me, that's the T talking, I was more of a kick in the door type of DM. but I played 13th Age. 13th Age really, it's a great game, and it's a great game that has a lot of background stuff that your players can do, unique things, and a lot of role-playing opportunities. In that game, those players made me transition the way that I DM'd from a kick in the door type of DM to like, wow, I got to really up my game because these guys are making me look pretty shady. So I had to adapt on the fly, man. And I'm glad that game happened because I know that I've become a better DM because of that. So
I will. I'll jump on board and say that I agree that I agree that a lot of it relies on the DM. I agree that a lot of it relies on knowing what kind of groups you have and your players as well. I think for me, because I mean, I did run a campaign, actually an Eberron campaign in 4E, and and then ran in first, second, third. I think the only campaign I've never run is 3.5. I played very little bit of it, but didn't GM it, but I did every other edition.
Greg, and even if you play 3.5, you're the god of your game. You can take out.
Right.
When I played 3.5, I took those 900 fucking ways, pardon my language, 900 different ways to take attacks of opportunity. You take an attack of opportunity from getting up out of your bunk roll from some hobo 3 towns over that's going to give you. Well,
you're in melee range of that hobo. Let's keep that in mind. You're in melee of the hobo.
No, I'm just exaggerating with the amount of attacks of opportunity. So, yeah. But you're the god. You take all that stuff out. That's just the way it is.
You totally can. I guess the thing I would say though, and I guess this is the thing that made me think about this regarding what was going on with, let's say, Blades. So on a certain level, you can absolutely do exactly as you've described. You can certainly do that. What I don't want is, I don't want a system that I feel like is fighting me. I think that there are times when systems do push you in certain directions. For example, I'll use the Blades example here just because I was sort of struck by this. One of the sort of prevailing principles of Blades in the Dark is they want roles. Lots of them. They want lots of roles. And the reason they want lots of roles is because their belief is that they want increased agency and engagement on the part of the player. And there's nothing that they find more that nothing gets players kind of the heart pumping and ready other than, oh my God, I've got I got a role that I got to make. I got to get involved and do this thing and think about this stuff. And I respectfully disagree that is the way to produce engagement. Because my view is that if you roll 1,000 times in a game, I'm exaggerating, but if you roll a bunch of times, there are times when a lot of those roles begin to blur together because definitionally, not every single one of those roles is going to be a defining moment. Now, we've all had roles that we've done as both players and GMs that if this role fails, that's it, and in my Curse of Strahd campaign, folks who watch that will know that Trendane's character, Weller, has had 2 occasions where he would 2 death saves down. If he fails the death save, he's done. And that's it, and there's nothing they can do about it, and he's a level 2 character. They're not going to have anywhere near amount of money to be able to resurrect him, plus good luck resurrecting him in Barovia anyway. So, I mean, the whole thing is going to be, and he managed to make the roll. That kind of thing, that sort of tension definitely has great value. And so I wouldn't necessarily want to remove that entirely and have a completely non-fate based, non-dice driven system, because there are moments when that's really exciting. As Greg knows from our Wilderness of Mirrors, from our Assignment Impossible stuff, there are times when roles in that become really important too. But it's not constant, and it's not just a constant backdrop drumbeat of roll after roll after roll. And so I think for me, there's a sense that if I, as a GM, want to be able to run a campaign that is more story-driven, and I'm an author, so I'll fully admit that that's my favorite thing, is storytelling and working on player storytelling together, collaborative storytelling.
And a fine author, by the way, I might add.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. But if we're in the midst of doing stuff like that, I don't want to have to be constantly sort of reducing that to, I do something super awesome but crit fail. Okay, I understand that the critical fail can be woven into the story as well under certain circumstances, but if it's a never-ending stream, and this is the 5th roll they took in the last minute, it's hard for me to see how that how that somehow allows you to distinguish between those individual roles. And so I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that the system that you're involved in sometimes, I think, pushes you in certain directions, And so for me, if I have a system that's pushing me towards the heavy dice rolling, heavy crunch stuff, I don't respond as well to that as I do to a system where I think it's blended better. And a good example of that, I really enjoy the 5e system. Part of the reason I like it so much is because it's so good in different contexts. The Adventures in Middle-earth system is very different, much less combat, much more, God, I love that system. But it's not, but it's not as driven by the sort of hack and slash as regular D&D would be. And Esper Genesis is a space opera thing, so that's got a different feel also. And that shows me that the mechanical system underneath is sound. So I guess I just was saying that for me, there's a sense that some systems I felt like I had to fight. And I always felt a little bit like 4E. I mean, yeah, I could just ditch most of 4E and do whatever the hell I want, but then why am I playing it and not just calling it ARV edition? Like, why don't, I mean, like, and that, I guess that's the only thing is, am I working within the system or not? Which, by the way, isn't a knock on 4E, because I know a lot of people like you, Dave, you've actually, helped me see the light a bit on this, that there's a lot of value still to the 4E, model and system. But just for me, if I feel like I'm pushing against it somehow, and it's kind of like, please do this, and I'm like, can I please do that? And it's like, no, do this. That's a little harder for me, I guess, to kind of engage in.
There's two things I just wanted to touch on. The first is 4E was a fine system. It was actually what got me back into DMing for the most part, but I think that wasn't like a choice. It just happened to be the edition that was out at the time. But I liked it, and one of the things that I still kind of miss, and I don't know, maybe this is just a personal thing, but I think that 4E had a lot of interesting ways in which some people might argue the opposite, but I think it had a couple of interesting ways in which it encouraged the players to start telling their own story where they might not. And I will specifically point in this as an example to the power cards that it gave every player, right? Your character's abilities, rather than just having this is what I roll a D20 plus 15 to attack. And that's, your character had a stack of cards, each of them describing a specific action, and I think it'd be interesting, like, if you just took the description of each of those attacks, like each of those special moves, and you didn't take the dice rolls or any of the mechanics, but you just put each one of those on a little piece of paper and handed them to your players and say, hey, these are some cool special things that your character knows how to do, some techniques about how you use the sword. Now if you hand them to a player, that player now has a more diverse and more interesting set of ways that they can describe what's going on in combat, how their character engages with the world. And some people do that automatically, and some people might find it a little bit limiting, but for a lot of players who don't naturally do those things, I think that's a super interesting and valuable addition. And I really like the power cards. I thought they had a lot of flavor to them, rather than just being like, I roll a D20 and I hit the thing, and that's it.
That's well said. It's a good point.
There's 3,400 powers in 4E.
There's a lot, and
lots of flavor text.
Your own too. Why the hell not?
So many cards
for 5E. Sure.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that I think I had something to say and it kind of slipped. So the thing that you were talking about, a system having a lot of crunch and maybe not necessarily doing what you wanted. I don't know if I got this from Blades in the Dark, but then again, I didn't play it enough to really, really feel whether or not it was in the system. But I mentioned Mouse Guard before, and the reason that I think I fell in love with Mouse Guard as a system is because not just aside from just rolling dice to succeed or overcome obstacles or things like that, the one thing that it did as a system that I have not seen from D&D ever, and I have not seen from other systems nearly as much. With the exception of very specific sort of narrative, or someone call them story game systems, is the system it goes out of its way a lot to ask the players how things either make their characters, how things make your characters feel, or how things affect your characters, right? D&D has at no point in my entire life has the system ever encouraged me to ask myself whether or not the dungeon that I just emerged from, or the vampire I just slew, or the big bad guy that I am hunting makes my character feel or strains my relationship with other people in the world, right? Those are things that might happen, they might happen over the course of the story, but the system never prompts the players to stop and ask themselves questions like that. And I think those questions are super important when you're creating a character, right? What are your character's priorities? How do they feel about things? Where do they inhabit the world? I think those are important things that if you want to craft a great story, those are things that the system should also encourage the players to answer regularly, if not every session, at least every so often, right? Because those questions and those things, and introspecting and asking yourself about characters and having the players just the discussion at the end of a mouse guard session about what when you're awarding points, right? When the players say, I think this person had a great moment, or a moment that really affected them, or something that was really cool to watch, right? Just encouraging those discussions is a great way of coaxing players to talk about and to further narratives, the game's narrative, where other systems, D&D is never going to ask you how you felt about a session at the end of the session, right?
So I think I want to jump in on that. I think you're 100% right that that's true. And I think what may have helped D&D in this regard is not the system, but the people playing it.
Right. Oh, no,
Specifically, what I'm thinking about is, everybody knows that a lot of people sort of point to one of the big explosions of popularity in D&D coming from, the folks with Critical Role and the incredible popularity of that system. That's true. But if you go back even earlier than that to Acquisitions Incorporated, which is what I think really began this process, Acquisitions Incorporated was run by a group of guys, as we know from Penny Arcade, who, Mike Krahulik had never played it before, and listening to those first ones was basically kind of just rolling with the punches. And it was done by, I think, probably the best DM operating today, and that's Chris Perkins, who just really combined everything together in such a way that he really told a compelling story. Now, that became, that whole Acquisitions Incorporated thing became kind of sillier and sillier and very driven by kind of, theater for people that are, whatever, thousands of people that are packing into theaters and whatever to watch it. So that's a little bit different there. But both that and then later on Critical Role, I think, taught people that the way that you play the system is by developing oneself as a living, breathing character that is not just a combination of dice rolls, right? In fact, teaching them, and this is the most important thing, to lean into the flaws of the character as much as the strengths of them. Anything, I think, maybe the greatest innovation or the greatest sort of advancement for me in terms of what I see from my players is they are far less, and again, I know this is different for everybody, but my folks are far less worried now about failure states. They're much more willing to kind of roll with those. And obviously they don't want their characters to die, and they would love their characters to succeed more than anything else. But they have become more invested in creating an interesting story. And I think that D&D and all of these things shine when people feel like they are collaboratively invested in this collective story. And that means sometimes that there's failures there. The guy who, as I've talked about on this show before, the guy at the end of my Rise of Tiamat, Tyranny of Dragons campaign, who was playing a Warforged TikTok, who ends up dying in the last battle. His death was really powerful. He did a great job with it, and he had known it was likely that he wasn't going to make it through it, and it really affected chat, it affected the players, and it made for wonderful storytelling. It wasn't death for the sake of it, but it was sacrifice with a purpose. That's a great story moment, and that's the kind of thing that I think he had sort of bought in himself. So whereas I think some systems encourage what you're describing, Askren, like encourage the players to imagine themselves as being invested story-wise and stuff, it strikes me that a lot of the popularity of some of the D&D shows now, and again, Friends of the Table, and like all the different ones that are out there, and also, the Twitch, D&D community that continues to grow, has gotten people that I think want to play like that. And maybe they're not all capable of doing it at the levels that the, all voice actors or whatever on Critical Role do it, but it's got them playing in a different way, so that for me, that problem seems much less difficult now, than it might have been 5 years ago. And I mean, I don't mean to take D&D off the hook. Maybe it should put more effort into that, but it seems to me that's less of a problem because the players have made it less of a problem. I
think it should also be it probably should be stated that if you're talking specifically about Twitch, the people that are streaming, and especially the people that you see streaming, are comparatively a small representation of the population, right? Like they are the people who by definition can do that in a game because
Yep.
you know that's
true.
how they land themselves, you know, cast on shows. The you know, I think every DM, right, if you're not already doing it, I would suggest take a look at the Mouse Guard Burning Wheel system, right? All of the questions and all of the things about failure and stuff like that are things that you could probably find a way to talk into your D&D game. And you know, just get like, always be to me as a DM, the thing is always be asking questions about how one thing is affecting another thing, right? And you're right. The best players, the players that stand out, just sort of naturally do that because they're naturally asking themselves those questions and having those conversations and playing out those scenes. But when we're dealing with players that maybe have not experienced that, no one's ever conditioned them to sort of think this way or to play a game that involves asking them serious questions about what kind of failure could I, can we accept? How can we play through,
right?
Not success. What can my character lose here? Those are questions that I think the DM should encourage players to talk through if they have never done it before.
I agree with that, and I would say that gets back to what Greg talked about with trust. A lot of that is do the players trust that the GM is invested in everyone having a good time and telling a good story, or are they invested in trying to screw over people? And like if there is trust, that helps a lot with that. There's two things that I want to mention. One is what Twilight's Falling was talking about with this idea about being a max min player and saying I've never been emotionally interested in a character in a game until I watched Greg DM Firefly and thought that might be the better way to play these games. Now that's interesting to me because I've heard that story from many people. In fact, I don't remember exactly who it was. It might have been Echo Alpha, who said that his watching the campaigns was really inspiring to him to sort of take this up. Now, for us as folks who have done a lot of this stuff on Twitch and DMing, like that's gold. Can I just say to chat, like hearing that the games that we're doing have a positive effect on you is like water in a desert, man. Like, please, continue to send that our way. We love to hear that sort of thing. But the thing I wanted to mention was that suggests that there was this desire to be sort of invested in characters in that way, which leads me to a question for Greg, which is because Greg has done more, I'm pretty sure, Cthulhu. I know you've done some of it, Askren, but I feel like Greg has done tons of these campaigns, either playing in them or DMing them. And GMing them. And I've always found Cthulhu really has very little interest for me as a system because I don't particularly love Lovecraft, and I sure as hell don't love a system where you're guaranteed to die, and guaranteed to lose. But the thing is that as I've watched these systems, the way that we get to that final stage is very different, it seems to me. And then the people who love Cthulhu, like really love Cthulhu. So I want to ask, what is it like for you, Greg, GMing a system that has to have, that has failure in large quotes as part of its makeup? Like, I mean, you really can't win exactly Cthulhu, but you can still be great within it somehow. And I guess I'm wondering how you kind of got your head wrapped around that, because it strikes me that Cthulhu, which by the way is coming from a time period where game systems were more crunchy and did have a lot more dice mechanics and so forth, and then is kind of modified over time. But what is it like doing something like that for you, either playing or GMing something like that?
That's a great question, Greg, and I'm going to answer it as I answer most of my questions in life. There are two types of people in this world. There are people that embrace Captain Picard, and there are people that embrace Captain Kirk. And as I am a devotee of Captain Kirk, the Kobayashi Maru comes into play whenever I do Call of Cthulhu. I have never been the keeper, unless it's a one-shot, of a traditional classic Call of Cthulhu game.
Okay.
I use the Pulp Cthulhu system, which is much more forgiving to the players. It increases hit points by 3 to 4 times. It provides them with powers to be able to actually combat the Eldritch horrors. It's more forgiving with sanity. It lends itself to a longer running campaign. I love classic Cthulhu for a one-shot, two-shot, something where you're pretty sure the characters aren't going to make it, and you want them to kind of have that in-game descent into madness. Pulp Cthulhu, you want all the fun elements of Cthulhu, but you want your characters to be able to make it long enough to tell the story.
All the cosmic horror, none of the death. Is that the?
We have plenty of death.
Okay.
It's just that you want your characters to be able to make it at least long enough to tell a chapter of their book.
Okay.
And I've been blessed with 2 series right now where the players are fantastic. And while I have never actively tried to kill any of my players, I never go easy on them either. And they are able to work their way around it. But yeah, Pulp Cthulhu is that great bridge for me. It's the Cthulhu without me guaranteeing the death of my players.
That's fair. Is it more, and would you say that it's more crunchy as a system than traditional Call of Cthulhu, or the opposite? Is it more mechanics heavy?
I'm the very worst person to ask about crunch, because I will take a system and I will say, like it, hate it, hate it, hate it, like it, and then go.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, with Pulp Cthulhu, Pulp Cthulhu adds and kind of reinforces some of the abilities that they have. They provide more of like the background flavor. In the original Call of Cthulhu, I'm not sure how familiar the audience is with it, but they give like, there's a kind of a handful of specifics that kind of make your character a little bit different.
Right.
Your character might have like a military background, so if they see a dead body, they don't take sanity loss. Well, Pulp Cthulhu takes those kind of little quirks in Call of Cthulhu and gives you like 25 of those playbooks.
Okay.
And then you're kind of pick and choose. So it's more player friendly, and quite frankly, it's more GM friendly too.
Okay, that's interesting. Do we have any of us here on the panel today experience, by the way, in Shadowrun? I've never GM'd Shadowrun, but I have played it. I enjoyed it a lot when I played it, but I think it was because we had a pretty good GM, and we had a lot of guys that were. It was part of a program called a special author guest program at Origins that they ran, where they would take some of us who were members of the authors track there, and they would put us into these games with some people. So they had me in a Shadowrun game. So basically, I was content to just kind of sit back and watch, which was good because the other people were experienced and had like, these are the people who come in, with the sack of dice like dragging over their shoulder, right? And they, like they hit it on the ground, and then they're just kind of like, well, I'm going to talk to my 55 contacts that I've got here, and they're immediately calling me chummer like before I shake their hands to say hi before the game starts. Like these are hardcore, okay? Like they are dedicated neons, like they are down with it. And so it was cool to sort of sit back and watch that happening. I think if I had been trying to play a game that it was really like, oh my God, I can't wait to play, I think I would have been more like, okay, that was more of a spectator type of game there, because the experienced people really knew what they were doing. So I guess I'm curious, because Twilight's brought it up a couple times about that's a game that is famous for having a great deal of dice rolling and complexity. And I don't know, what are our thoughts about a game like Shadowrun and complexity or lack thereof? Does it hit that sweet spot for anybody here or not? I've
never played Shadowrun. It is entirely too crunchy for me to ever like. People have been actually recently, when I've been, as my schedule thinned out, I was kind of being like, I DM a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that's because as a DM, I don't feel like I've burned myself out on traditional fantasy or like fantasy plus other flavor, which Dungeons and Dragons tends to be, in almost every setting you play it in. And so I haven't kind of burned myself out there, so I'm not like actively reaching for other sort of systems like Shadowrun and things to fill the gap. And also even if I did, I am not a smart man, and my hard drive space is very limited, and I don't know if I could learn and cram Shadowrun into my head well enough to dungeon master it.
Okay.
So it's probably not ever going to happen. If I get invited to a game, I'll probably fake my way through it, but it's too much for me to process.
Dave?
Shadowrun a couple of months ago, the game store here in El Paso, one of the 10 game stores that we have in El Paso.
Wow.
Had it's awesome, man. They had a sale on all of their box sets, and Shadowrun was only $9.99, so I picked it up. I haven't opened it up yet, but I did read Shadowrun in previous editions, and I kind of compared it to Rifts.
Okay.
Because Rifts has got so much crunch to it as well. So I don't know. I don't know. This is a new edition of Shadowrun, so I don't know if they've toned it down or anything like that. So I can't be definitive on my yes or no answer. But I'm going to try it out. But hopefully they've gotten rid of some of the crunch, sort of like what Pathfinder's done with the new playtest.
Kind of involved with that. Okay. Any Shadowrun experience, Greg, at all? Did you ever play it or not?
Man, I love the idea of Shadowrun. I just absolutely love the concept. I would love to be able to go out there and like street peeking the shit out of, a session. But I'm telling you what, I made the mistake. Well, not the mistake. I thought, just like Askren said, I just don't have the hard drive space available. I cracked open that PDF and I went, oh my God. I just pushed it aside and I thought, I just don't have enough. So
okay, that is logical.
Do you mind if I pause and backtrack a little bit to something that
sure. Yeah, please do.
Mentioned though, because I feel like this is super interesting. I tweeted a thread about this a while ago. I don't remember how long ago, but I feel like maybe the reference might pass over some people's understanding as it comes to a DM. But he mentioned the whole Kobayashi Maru thing as a dungeon master thing, and I like it not just for the reference, but also because one of the best things that I ever learned how to do, and one of the best pieces of advice that I have for any dungeon master is literally anything that you can make into a choice for the players, you should. Because asking and anything that you can ask a question about how a player, how a player accomplishes it, or that you can balance, between two potential. Like, one of the things that I love doing as a dungeon master, and it has not only elevated my own ability to tell story, but I think my ability to turn situations in, like, ramp up the tension in situations, even in mundane things, is when players ask about something or they have something they want, is simply saying, okay, you can either have this or you can have this, but you need to make the choice, right? So you need to tell me which is more important for you. And that could be anything from whether a player wants to, for example, get their friend out of a ravine. Yeah, okay, you can throw a rope down and pull him up, or you can save the loot that's falling out of the pack, his pack, right? It's one of the two. The situation off the top of my head, but anything that you can ask the player, you can have this or you can have this, and it could be in combat, right? You can hit this guy, or and maybe leave yourself open to attack, or you can protect this this objective and not necessarily maybe your enemy gets away. I don't know, but is like the situations don't have to have a clear good or bad choice. In fact, not having clearly superior choices, I think, is probably what makes them even better, right? Because then you're not you don't have to create any tension there. The player will buy into the situation just by choosing a side, because they have to think about it, right?
Especially when they've engaged in their characters to a degree that because you hear this a lot now from players too, this is what my character would do. And by the way, I love that when I have a player say, like, okay, this is what I would do in real life is this, but honestly, my character is driven by this. And that's gold. You want them to be engaged that way.
That's great. What's even better is when a player says, this is what my character would do, and you can make them decide between doing that or doing something that their character wouldn't do. Because like, everyone has things that they would do, right?
For in-game reasons, you mean, right?
Yes. Yes. So you and I have things that we would, like, if there is a choice presented to us, we have things that are in our character. But real drama to me comes from forcing a player to consider options that are outside their character.
Right.
Right. How can you make how can you make a player consider taking an action that is not something they would do? How can you make a paladin consider letting an evil person go? Or yeah, I don't know, whatever. It's, a good person taking a deal from the villain, right?
Right.
These things are if you can make a player sort of actively consider those choices, then you'll really kind of get them to invest in their situations.
Well, and I want to.
Sometimes they might just shut down. I don't know.
Well, right. It depends on how you do it. And I want to ask Greg a follow up about that in just a second. But I do want to say that, when the characters feel there is character development arc also. And when you have a vision for a player's character, when the player has a vision for their character about what they're going to do and learn, that makes a big difference, because it means that they don't see themselves as static. This is the thing that frustrates me about people that take on an alignment and then assume that taking on this alignment means that I can just, I can basically, I'm just going to have to be that alignment. So the classic one is they play chaotic neutral, and then they're like, so that means I'm crazy and I can do whatever I want. Why can I do that? Because I'm crazy. And that's what chaotic neutral is. And there's no growth, there's no movement, there's no shift, there's no change, there's no feeling of, if you really were this way, you would have been dead 5 years ago because no one would have put up with this. Like there's no adjustment there. Whereas someone who has over time remains that alignment at core, but has certain things that has pushed them to understand the importance of family, of connection with the team, of feeling like someone in the team is worth it to them, even if everyone else they don't like, they want to do this for their friend who really they feel close to. That stuff is great because it's for in-game reasons that they're choosing something which, in quotes, their character might not have done, but they would do now because of the way that the change has actually occurred, which I think is powerful. And I want to ask, actually, Greg, I know that, Eric Voulgaris, who we've had on the show before, is famous for being like constantly doing nothing but asking questions. Like, and I think, would you think it was this? Like, do you feel like you're this or this? Do you feel that at a certain point, I'm just like, Jesus, stop asking me questions. No. But I mean, he really wants his players to be connected in it. Is there a line where, and I want to start with Greg for this one, is there a line where the story that you're telling, the narrative positions that you need to, the hooks, right, that you have to sort of throw out there. Yes, we all improvise. Is there a point where the player wants to make a certain choice that is just not going to functionally operate within that world without basically harming everyone else's ability to make a story, or without making the adventure not function? Is there ever a situation you can think of where you've kind of had to gently be like, yeah, let's kind of, it's sort of, we don't want to railroad. It's the opposite of railroading, but we also don't want people who basically just, drop bombs and walk away from the exploding building for effect when all their friends died in the explosion, like that sort of thing. So I'm curious if there's a line for you where you feel you need to be able to direct people back onto a more, I don't know, story-friendly path, if that makes sense.
That's a fantastic. I had a follow-up statement that I wanted to make.
Oh yeah, please do.
And it's amazing that you opted to bring this up, Greg, as you asked me this, because my statement is to my friend Allison. And if I did say there are people in this world that are Captain Picard, Captain Kirk, Captain Archer, Captain Janeway, and Commander Sisko, that I would be in trouble if I did. So there's more of a spectrum.
Yes.
Here.
That said, you're right, Captain Kirk. Yeah, for life. No,
right.
Just saying.
And it's also interesting that I said that for my friend Allison. My friend Allison in my Pulp Cthulhu Project Athena, they had some federal investigators show up to just kind of figure out what was going on. Her character decided to straight murder everybody that was there, whether it was her character didn't understand what was going on. I never tried to steer the character or the player away from murdering federal investigators. So you're asking me whether or not it's going to derail a story? Hell no, man. If they want to go absolutely berserk and make something, that means I get to play too.
Is that a Pulp Cthulhu? Is that a Pulp Cthulhu? Is that a Pulp Cthulhu thing that allows you that? Would you be as comfortable doing that in Age of Conan, in a theoretical D&D?
You mean if somebody went
off on Yeah.
Or,
If they killed federal investigators in Conan by Crom, you know, like what what would that look like in that system?
you dogs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm for if the now here's the asterisk beside it. If a player, and I've had this at a physical table before, when a player just wants to watch the world burn, and they just
Right.
want to destroy the story, and they don't want anybody else to have fun. And really, when somebody acts that way, they're not having fun either. It's some type of outburst that they're having. There's a lot more to it. That would be a discussion.
Okay.
You know, if I felt that it was being negative or it was coming from the wrong place.
Okay.
But if it's we just talked about it, you know, my character would do this. I wouldn't kill federal investigators, but damn, my character, if they thought that they were being threatened or blah blah blah, I'm like, all right, let's roll with it. You don't even roll any dice. Let's just play this out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I am, because
Okay.
like I said, that's when I get to play as a GM DM keeper. When things aren't exactly the way I think, which is 100% of the time, I get to play. So
Okay, I dig that for sure. So let me ask that. Let me throw that over just quickly to Dave here, because I wanted to hear him weigh in on how far off a given path are you willing to go. Again, we're not talking about railroading, but how far off a, you know, general thoroughfare of story are you willing to let your players take something, if need be or not? I'm just curious how you weigh that in your mind, and also, sorry, and if the system has an effect on that.
I don't think the system would really have an effect, because I usually am pretty versatile to any system that I play, whether it be Pathfinder 3.5 or 4th or 5th or Savage Worlds, just whatever. It depends on what the players.
Okay.
I'm a DM that I hate to say no.
Okay.
I very, very, very rarely ever say no. But when I let them stray, I always try to get them back, sort of in a roundabout way, back into the path that I'm trying to lead them.
Okay.
But I let them have their fun. And take, for instance, my Lost Mighty Fandelver finale. It was awesome. You know, they had totally gone the opposite way of how we discussed where they were going to go, and because we always usually talk about the games, and I had to adapt on the fly, and I went ahead and brought the villain, which is the Black Spider, in, and I just impromptu started offering positions, I guess, in his cabinet, you could say, to where, you know, are you willing to backstab any of your party members to join me? And my youngest player, which is 13, he actually said, yeah, I want to do it. But I kind of figured he was going to try to dupe the Black Spider and then all of a sudden attack him. But he ended up dying because he did do that. And the Black Spider actually got him and killed him, and then took him into Undermountain into the portal. So that was all stuff. And then that's where we're going to continue with Undermountain probably towards the end of the year. And that's stuff that I let my players do whatever they want. I mean, I've heard a lot of DMs say, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do that. I just don't like that, unless it's, you know, it's like pulling out a machine gun in a 50 Fathoms pirate game. I'll say, nice, you gave it the old college try. Or laser guns, like one of my players was wanting laser guns. I was like, you gave it a college try, but how about we'll give you some blunderbusses, or maybe with some black powder stuff. So that's how I'll kind of negotiate with the player and kind of, you know, compromise with them. So, but I let them do whatever they want, and then I try to get them back onto the path that I want to do.
I just have this image, by the way, when you said, I'll give you blunderbusses. Like, I had this image from Austin Powers. Like, are they ill-tempered blunderbusses? Oh, extrely. All right, fine. Fine then.
No, Mini-Me. We do not eat the blunderbusses.
Do not eat the blunderbusses. All right. Well, it's interesting to me, because I'm always interested to see about how far we will extend or not extend. This is not something, this is outside the scope of what we're going to do today, but for a future show, I want to be able to talk a little bit about player conflict and character conflict, because that's something that I'm willing to go a lot further on not saying no to, when I used to be much more kind of conflict averse and wanting to shut that down. And I think over time, just like the story, you can let more of that go. But I find that interesting. And I know it sounds like what a lot of what we're talking about is basically it depends on the GM and the players. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? It depends on how well you execute all of this. One thing that I think is important, do not take on a mechanically crunchy system if you really don't have the headspace for it, as we've all said. And the same thing would be the case. Don't try to be Critical Role if you can't be. Like don't become, I will do everything as if I am a thespian with multiple experiences and 10 years of stage experience and blah, blah, blah. Like if you don't have that, play to the strengths of what you have. And that, I think, is sometimes difficult because people really want to be like what the stuff is that they see on screen, and you can't always do that. So being able to go with what you have in your group and really assessing your personalities, I think, can help there. All right, well, let's move on to talk a little bit then about the little product review session before we take some questions from chat about something that we have at the moment. And I want to start because I got my exciting Adventures to Middle-earth Rivendell region guide I finally got in the mail. I have given these folks a pop before. Full disclosure, they sponsored the campaign of this on my channel, but I bought this. I mean, they didn't buy this for me. Every time I get one of these books, I'm just kind of like, first of all, I like just thumbing through it because it's just, like gorgeous maps and like these pictures of fortresses and things like this. And for someone like me who is an avowed Tolkien geek and my favorite series, the most important thing I ever read as a kid growing up and all that, this stuff is this is my jam. And it's interesting because it really does actually help with the adventures themselves. The Wilderland adventures that they've been doing really ties into the Rovanian region guide. And there are characters that I've brought from the Rovanian region guide into the Wilderland adventures thing and integrated it. And it's seamless because they are from that area, which has been really great. It's added complexity and it makes it a different experience so that someone who's like, oh, I played Wilderland adventures. Well, you didn't play my Wilderland adventures because mine is different and there's a lot broader experience in terms of what they chose to focus on and not. So I love this. It's a beautiful book. And again, they have their situation where if you buy from Cubicle 7 directly, they will send you the digital PDF version immediately, like within a day or two. And then they will send you the physical copy when it is ready. And you get them for the same price. So you pay $40, you get the PDF, and then you get the physical. I will reiterate my desire for all companies to do this. It is good business practice. I know you think it isn't. You're wrong. It makes a difference because people will then do this, buy this, and have it for use because you've done that, and it will make it possible for them to spread the gospel to other people. It really does make a difference. So kudos to Cubicle 7. Although, quick note, I really wish that I could get a little faster than a few months, but that's because they're in the UK, so it's not their fault. But man, I really wish shipping was faster. I want the Star Trek transporter to get these things to be quicker. But anyway, so really been having fun looking that over the last couple of weeks. Dave, what have you got in way of a product to talk about? Are we going with the paper shredder? Are we going with the shredder?
I was going to go with the paper shredder, but when I went AFK for the first time, that was my doorbell. And look what just came in.
Oh, check that out.
New case of Dragon Heist WizKids miniatures.
Oh, see? See, this is not scripted, people. Not scripted. This is as we see it. Nice. I've lurked a couple times in your streams where you're painting them. Are you going to paint these miniatures also?
No, these are no Icons of the Realms. They're by WizKids. They're for D&D. Every single adventure that comes out, they usually 44 to 54 to 60 piece set. These are all plastic. They're all pre-painted.
Okay.
There's 32 packs in the case. 126 miniatures. I have the complete Icons of the. I have about 3,000 Icons of the Realms.
Oh man, so good.
So oh yeah, it's awesome. I am not going to get the Ravnica because I'm not a Magic the Gathering fan, and I am not going to run that adventure as well, just because I was hoping for Nentervale or something like Dragonlance or maybe Dark Sun or something like that, or Eberron.
Or Eberron.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm going to be opening these up next week, live on stream once I get my new cameras in, and it'll be a good time. But yeah, I started painting miniatures. I started painting about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago, because of I'm kind of.
I think 2 months because you brought this up a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I bought all of those terrain crates from Kickstarter. So I have about 500 pieces of terrain. I've been learning how to paint. I think I've painted like 6 or 7 times. It doesn't look that bad. Honestly, I think they've turned out pretty good. Ever since I found out what wash was, I had no clue what miniature wash was. And I'm like, okay, my miniatures are pretty bright. How do I get rid of this like gunmetal look to all the screws and the brackets? And a couple of viewers told me about washing miniatures, and I was like, man, this shit looks good.
Next up is blending and glazing.
Yeah, I've got some effects paints too, because I bought that army painter set that has 50 paints. So yeah, I just started using washes. Everything looks really good, but the miniatures have actually turned out. I'm not painting miniatures per se. I'm painting terrain. I'm painting like fences, trees, shrubs, piles of gold, shit like that, is like tents. That's what I'm painting. So once I learn all of the different techniques and stuff like that, then I may dive into those Nazgul unpainted primer miniatures. So, but that's going to be down the line, because I just got so many icons of the realms. I really don't need any minis, to be honest.
Yeah.
Unless they're swarms. I need swarms, because if you're watching, which I'm sure you probably are, Whiz Kids, you need to put less giants in your booster packs and more swarms.
More swarms. Hear that. And by the way, if any Whiz Kids, if you have any interest in discussing a Masters of the Dungeon, miniature sponsorship, I know some people. Yeah, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. It's fun. I actually, when I do the Gen Con author sessions now, I just did the second one of those a couple months ago. Third one will be next year. I now am in the position of, I'm like, oh, I'll go to Gen Con, I'll get the monsters I need. But I do stupid stuff like make up things like flying books. And I'm like, so I'm standing there over the bins, like, with 1,000 of my closest friends next to me, who are all like, looking for dryads and elementals and stuff. And I'm like, do you have a flying book maybe? And they're like, a what? So I'm like, all right, how about this ghost? That clearly looks like a flying book. So I need to figure out how to become friends with some awesome custom mini designer that can do something like that and not have it cost $1,000 a piece for those incidents. So that's
why I started buying the minis by the case, because when I was buying all of the chainmail 3.5 and 4th edition D&D game miniatures, I was buying them singularly. So if I needed 5 orcs, I'm like, I'm never doing that again, because I spent way too much money buying miniatures independently. And beholders were like $50, $75.
Yep.
So that's why I buy them by the case now, is because they guarantee you pretty much an entire run, except for the super rare miniatures, which are usually the clear, transparent ones. And I know you're watching still, Whiz Kids, quit making them. Why do we have those? I mean, seriously, those are the worst miniatures you could ever put together. I mean, they have no value. I mean, they just don't. So other than that, that's why I buy them by the case, because I just don't want to have the problem that you had. We're the Dryad. It's $72.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I need 4 of them. So, I mean,
it's really true. Like I'm reminded of the Charlie Brown cartoon where he's looking for his favorite baseball player, Joe Slobotnik, the baseball card, and so he saves up all his money and he buys like 150 bubblegum packs, and he's just sitting there in this gradually like growing pile of bubblegum packs. And of course, it's Charlie Brown, so he doesn't find Joe Slobotnik. And Lucy comes in with 1 penny, hands it up to the guy, and she's like, "Oh, what do you know, Joe Slobotnik?" Like, it just, yeah. I was like, before there were the desperate search for miniatures, there was the desperate search for baseball cards. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the sentiment. All right. Well, Askren, what do you got? Have you got a cool product that you want to pimp out today that you've got?
Not really. I haven't had anything come in a very long time. I gave out all my wormwood, my elderwood boxes. My shelves are looking pretty bare these days. No, I haven't gotten the. I don't even know when the last thing I got in was. Probably before Gen Con.
Okay. All right. So no product review. So again,
whole lot of nothing. I'm broke.
Still, companies, look, like again, WizKids, since you're still watching, Askren definitely would like to hear from you. So you should send him stuff to his house immediately. All right. Well, let me pop up to Greg. Greg, have you got?
You better contact me first, because I've spent thousands of freaking dollars with you guys.
No, Dave, because Joe Slobotnik. See, Joe Slobotnik.
Right.
Oh, I'm not Critical Role. That's why.
That's right. Oh my God, Greg, what about you? You got something that you want to talk up that you may have just gotten relatively recently?
Oh, just 3 short days ago, I received my Savior of Mongo pack. It is Savage Worlds. It is Flash Gordon.
To check it out. Let me see it. Oh, there you go.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Orgasmic. That is awesome.
Nice.
And among I haven't had a chance to really go through it yet, but among my favorite things are the propaganda posters they put in.
Yeah.
I usually don't get off on stuff like this, but come on. This is the Hail Ming, he'll savage every one of us poster. And of course, the Go Flash, he'll save every one of us poster.
Nice.
I'm a huge mark for this stuff because as a kid of the 80s, if you did not grow up watching Flash Gordon and appreciating it, not just for the costumes,
Right.
but for the princess, then by God, you didn't grow up in the 80s. I love it. I can't wait to play it on stream. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do yet, but I'm going to be heading back to Mongo. And I cannot wait, as it is worth both the wait from the 80s and the wait from when I backed the Kickstarter. So he's going to save every one of us, guys. I know it.
That's super awesome. I want someone. I want in on the Brian Blessed character. I was just like, I want someone to be from the movie version of it. Flash, Master of the Universe. I dig it. And yeah, it's true. Getting some of that stuff is cool. Exactly. What are you talking? Cosmic Patrol does that, by the way, very well. Cosmic Patrol is a really cool narrative-driven system that is very much golden age of science fiction. Very much in that wheelhouse, and that's a lot of fun in its own way. Yeah, the rocket, the hilariously inefficient rocket ship designs, and but all super shiny chrome, on the outside of them and everything. That's where it's at. So, cool stuff. All right. Well, that gives us, exactly for Brian Blessed Z-Trend. That's what I'm talking about. All right, folks. Well, now is your chance, as we head into the home stretch here, to ask some questions. So if you have some questions you want to throw our way, and I see one popped up already, although I will probably not spend too much time on that. But if you have questions for us, please throw them in chat. Just type in question in all caps, : and then whatever question you want to ask us. You can address something to us individually or as a group about a particular subject. If you have a question about how to handle a particular issue you're having playing or DMing or GMing, our esteemed panel will try to handle it. Or if you have a question about something relating to a game system, now is the time. Please get those into chat right now if you are interested. As far as how my GOG D&D Halloween cosplay is coming along, that's going to be the easiest of all of them, because as the DM, I will get to do something badass like wear some kind of a cloak and a staff or something nondescript like that. Some of the others will be, I certainly don't need the beard. I've already got that covered. So that's all good to go. But the other ones, like Pyron, who's the head of the stream team, who plays with me, and we made up this idea that if we got a certain number of subs, that she would cosplay as a dragon. And she was like, wait, what? And then everybody did it. And so now she's cosplaying as a dragon. So that's going to be great. So I cannot wait to see what the Halloween level cosplay is going to be for any of us. But for me, cloak and staff, we're good to go.
I just ordered, I didn't have one. I used a mask that's sitting over there that I had picked up at Gen Con because I guested on a stream where I was playing a Plague Doctor character, and I didn't have a Plague Doctor mask. So
Okay.
through the magic of Amazon, hopefully I will have one this week. But I usually don't dress up for games, but I'm excited to not be able to be heard by anyone and have very foggy vision.
Right. I haven't done usually, but it's going to be difficult if Maggie keeps bringing her A game, because just, immediately just being like, not just the accent, because I do the accents too, but she's got the rings on the fingers, the bandana, the full, and I'm just like, wow, you have to up your game, I think, when something like that happens.
All it takes is one player. As soon as one player shows up in cosplay, it's like the gateway drug.
Everybody does it. Well, you do that all the time, man. Like you're that person that we're talking about. Like, oh my God. My favorite of yours, actually, my favorite, Greg, just quickly, I want to say, my favorite of yours is the Cthulhu. I think it was Cthulhu, where you were playing the Keeper, where you basically dressed up as like this judge, kind of like the powdered wig, I think it was like a French Revolutionary era, it was the game.
Yeah, Reign of.
Yeah, that was badass. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. That's good stuff. You will find it incredibly easy to not dress up for a game. Whatever, Tren, you will really. Do we need to discuss the thing that you were engaged? I mean, Tren's a furry. I'm not talking out of school there. He talks about it himself, and you don't want it. You want it'll be easy not to dress up. Whatever. Someday you're going to do this. You're going to play your druid, and you're going to show up as a wolf, and everyone's going to be like amazed. That's how that's going to go down. Sorry, Dave, you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say when I dressed up as Splug, my favorite D&D NPC of all time from the Shadowfell, I dressed up as Splug. I had my goblin mask on, my bear hood with the, I had my Thor hammer and all that stuff, all of my gloves, my makeup, and I was hoping to inspire the rest of the party. And boom, boom, boom.
No one, huh?
The one that did it. Yeah, I was the only one that did it. I was like, come on, guys.
They're all like, I got my t-shirt. Is that good? Like, no, that's not good. That's not good. Well, there's a certain crew that,
right? T-shirt. I'm ready to party, guys.
I mean, not on an every session basis, I don't think, but doing some of it like as a kind of special event type of thing, that's pretty cool. That can be a lot of fun. You try wearing one of those fursuits for 3 to 5 hours. Well, yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. All right, last chance to get in questions, folks. Last chance if you want to throw a question our way about systems, about D&D, or potential costumes that people could wear that they have not yet. Any of those would be good. And actually, while we're on the subject of sort of costumes and dress up, one thing that struck me was that this is something that, of course, when we were doing home games, this would never generally would not come up. But that too is something which is a function of an audience, right? I mean, like an audience now, whether it's on Twitch or whether it's whether it's in front of a live audience, now there's a little more engagement, it seems to me, in the possibility of costumes, just because they like the idea of feeling sort of connected to it. It's not exactly LARP, obviously, but it's got some sort of tie-ins with that. Paper masks, right? There you go. That's all Tren needs. He just needs a paper mask, and then he'll be completely fine, and it will kind of work out, maybe. But yeah. So, but anyway, so that there seems to be more sort of an interest in that because of sort of the live viewed kind of thing. Did you ever have that? Actually, any of you you just talked about it with yourself, Dave. But did you ever have a situation where someone was really not comfortable with any of that, and everybody else wanted to accept this one person? Because then I always feel bad, because then I don't want that person to feel incredible pressure to start dressing up if they really don't want to.
Or that person can just find another game too. I mean,
that's true.
I'm not trying to seem ruthless like that, but coming from a streaming point of view, you want people to watch your stream.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm going to try to put something together like that here in the future. So, I want players that are not going to want to be camera shy, and I want them to
that's fair.
Dress up like pirates or whatever, but yeah, I mean, you can kind of put your foot down once in a while, Arv, and say, you know what, well, then I need to find someone else in. And I hate to sound like a douche saying that, but sometimes you just need to.
Okay, that's fair. Greg, Askren, either of you ever had any disconnect between sort of the physical wanting to play as the character, but didn't really feel comfortable doing the kind of physical aspects, whether it be accent or costume or anything like that? Did you ever run into that or no?
I play with Laugh Love Lindy, who dresses up
for everything, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And, playing with her and loving her as much as I do, I have been drug into, and I did the cosplay stuff initially as well, dressed up with a vest and stuff for Cthulhu. But now, I mean, I have a room full of styrofoam heads with wigs and fucking hats on them and stuff, and I blame her. So, go follow her on Twitter, everybody. Laugh Love Lindy. She's the best person ever.
Yeah. What about you, Askren? You ever have costume things with players, or you?
Just not really. Mostly because I am bad enough at organizing the games that anything that I'm running to begin with. So the likelihood of me both convincing and collaborating the rest of a group to get dressed up for a stream is basically nil. I think the one time, and the VOD is probably somewhere saved on the channel, but last Halloween we were playing Mouse Guard, and we like everyone. So it was me, for Drunkly Romantic, Simply JXN, and Bronze Girl. Just grabbed whatever we had and threw it on, as a costume, like literally right before the stream started. I have a cloak that where is it? Oh, it's over here. So I have this.
Let's see the cloak. And by the way, cloaks, can I just say, this needs to come back.
All my shit's in boxes right now. This is not fair.
I have this hat. This is my Solomon Kane hat, and I just have it near my sitting on a table over there.
Oh my God.
And it just kind of makes an appearance because it's the only costume that I own. So
that's the best.
And a shameful plug for Solomon Kane. That is an amazing Savage World setting too.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna. I'm a huge Solomon Kane fan, but this is my only costume right here. I bought this for Comic-Con a long time ago. I had the full getup, but now I just sometimes use it on stream. Who knows?
I'm going to Gen Con for the first time this next year, and I'm literally going to cosplay an Uthgard Barbarian.
Do it.
I dig it, man.
I'm going to get a loincloth, nice furry loincloth, I'm a big fat dude, so it'll look awesome. I'm going to get a big, nice axe, and I'm going to have the boots with the fur on. So
Echo says, can I wear that for every stream? It's very bulky. It's very bulky. Sorry.
Yeah. No.
It's hard to wear headphones with it too.
When you get that, Dave, seriously, if you want to do Uthgard Barbarian every time, and Askren, you want to do Solomon Kane every time, and I can do me every time. No, I'm just kidding. No, that's awesome. I dig it. That's the Uthgard Barbarian thing is going to be pretty cool. And yeah, cloaks. I was just saying before, cloaks are
the beard. I mean, come on, the beard.
No, I know the beard for sure. Cloaks are the thing. I gotta say that, like, I really wish that those were theoretically functional in terms of being approved of by society, because I still like cloaks a lot. Like, I really wish
every man should have a cloak.
I just wish that cloaks would, but I mean, like, I would love to be able to. No kidding. Like, some of these things, this wouldn't be the case. But I would kind of like to wear cloaks and not jackets sometimes. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I would like to, but I feel like I don't know.
Look, a wool cloak will probably keep you warmer and more waterproof than almost any jacket will.
Well, probably, yeah. I mean, like, I don't know. I something about it is just, I've always kind of dug the idea of cloaks.
Maybe you can contact Cubicle 7 and say, hey guys, I need an elvish cloak. Maybe send one to you.
That's true. What they'll do is they'll send me a PDF cloak immediately, and then they'll send me the other one 6 months later.
They'll send me the pattern on PDF. That's it.
That's right. I can have my my wife and my daughter actually knits. Maybe I can just ask my daughter, can you please knit me a cloak? And if she gets started now for a cloak for a 6'3" guy, she'll probably have done by 2025. So that'll be great. But anyway, so cloaks, I'm all about the cloaks. All right. Well, we are just about at the end here, so I'm going to give everyone a chance to kind of talk stuff up. This was actually really interesting to me. A lot of our conversation was great, and I really enjoyed it as always. And I'm going to start as per usual with our special guest, Greg. This was great. I'm glad we have been talking for a couple of months about getting you on. I'm glad we were able to do it. Where will the fine folks be able to see you next with whatever new campaign shenanigans you've got coming on next? And thank you for being on with us. It was awesome.
I had a blast. I will go through all my plugs because that's what I am. Grimjack21502 on the Twitches and the Twitters. Tomorrow night on my channel from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time, you will be able to see our Pulp Cthulhu season finale for Project Athena. It's a year-long Pulp Cthulhu show. It is fantastic. I am running Dragon Heist from 5 to 8 Eastern on Encounter Roleplay on Mondays. I am also running Atari Twilight, which is a Tales from the Loop from 8 to 11 on Unmade Gaming. I am on Starward Bound, which is the WebDM show on Tuesdays from 7 to 10. I'm on the Call of Cthulhu show on Encounter Roleplay Wednesdays from 1 to 4 Eastern. Friday on my channel, I am running Outbreak Undead from 12 to 3 with 18 players over the span of 4 weeks. And I'm also on D&D channel, Learn by Play. And I've got 2 shows coming next month. May Black Roses Bloom, Dragonlance, and Ravenloft coming Wednesdays. And Grant Ellis is bringing some Invisible Sun to my channel on Fridays from 9 to 11. Guys, it's great. I'm done with my plugs. Make sure you spay and neuter your pets.
Thanks, Greg. And yeah, but you'll also, of course, be able to catch Greg once a month on my channel with Assignment Impossible. We always try to do that ahead of time, too. I love that campaign. And it's fun to have these folks here. So we will see him doing that as well. That will be good times. Oh, yeah, see? That's what I'm talking about. Very nice.
They
very
sent
nice.
him to that Cubicle 7 sent him that Gandalf pipe or that halfling pipe 2 months early. You're getting screwed.
I know it,
this
man.
This is the PDF version right here.
I'm being Joe Schlabotnik myself. That's what happened here. But Greg was awesome. Thank you, man, so much for being with us again. It was good times. Right down the line, Askren, always a pleasure, my friend. It was always great to hear from you, as always, sir. I know you said that you've been on hiatus, etc. Do you have any plans for getting stuff fired up again, at some point in the future, or not so much, and then you'll be back here next month? What's things look like for you over the next few weeks?
Well, I will be playing D&D tomorrow on it is D&D? No, Shadow of the Demon Lord. I will be playing Shadow of the Demon Lord tomorrow on Pro Restarter's channel. It's twitch.tv/pro with a 0 restarter. Maybe not a 0. I don't remember. You can find it. I'll tweet about it. Where I am playing a very grim and very kind of sadistic plague doctor named Eskel Mortusi. And I may be in my full mask and all that stuff if the stuff from Amazon comes on. Either way, I like dark horror fantasy, and if you like that too, you will really enjoy it. Obviously, I'll be here next month. I don't know what's going to happen between on the channel between now and then. There might be some secret art streams. There might be some gaming. But other than that, I might just pop up in other people's shows if they don't mind me crashing. I like to just do that and surprise people by appearing randomly in their Zoom call every so often.
He's got the hack that allows him to do that. It's very interesting. All right. Well, always a pleasure, Askin. I look forward to seeing.
Well, thank you for having me, as always, man.
Yeah. Good times, and I will definitely have you back here for our year anniversary show as we begin year 2 of Masters of the Dungeon next month. Hard to believe. Speaking of,
wait, it got renewed.
I know. We got picked up, guys. We got picked up for another season. It's nice. True. It was a long discussion with myself, but it worked out. Moving right along the line, of course, the second of our regulars on the show, and that, of course, is Dave. Always a pleasure, Dave. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when you get some of the stuff filled out with the studio and all that stuff going on. Where will the fine folks see you, either on, offline, or anything else like that?
Lots of work going on. Lots of work, Arv. Also, like Greg said, please spade and neuter your pets. We don't need these damn things running around. I'm hitting too many with my charger. So anyways, thanks for Greg for coming on. It was nice to get to meet you and talk to you and stuff. Askren, always good to hang out with you as well. And Greg, you are such a stud. But anyways, you can find me, I'm really kind of in a hiatus as well, just like Askren. So I've just moved my mother to El Paso. So I'm that's priority number 1. Plus I work full time for Fantasy Grounds. So, streaming going to be coming back next month, probably during the middle, but starting next week, I'm going to start doing some other streams. And plus with these new WizKids miniatures, they're already burning a hole in my pocket and I got to open them up. So as soon as I get my new webcams, I'm going to be doing some nice rotating tables, showing you the miniatures as I open them up with different views and stuff. So I'm going to be doing some production upgrades. So once I get all that stuff set up, you'll start seeing some streams next week. And more discussions like this. I've got my Digital Dungeon Master podcast. I'm going to be having a couple guests on a month. I've got a Nerdarchy coming up pretty soon. We're getting some details hashed out, and a couple of other of the YouTube channels as well. As for games, like I've got Lost Money Fandelver, it's in hiatus. Also, my Savage Worlds 50 Fathoms hiatus, but they'll come back. And then plus, like I said, I want to start up a Pathfinder playtest game because I really like what I see. And with that new Flash Gordon box set, I might want to run that too because Flash Gordon's awesome. And plus that actually inspired Shane to do a Kickstarter here in the middle of October for the new version of Savage Worlds. So there's going to be adjustments, and we're going to have Shane on the Fantasy Grounds channel talking about those changes and stuff. So, but other than that, you can find me here on Twitch, .tv/thedigital DM, Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, all that good stuff. Lots of changes to Patreon coming up as well. Lot of changes actually. So, anyways, that's it for me. Arv, how can we get a hold of you?
Thank you for asking, sir. Well, I am actually going to be continuing a little bit after the show to some other stuff as well, but I will say that you will see us next month. For those of you who are interested as far as my own campaigns, I have another session of Esper Genesis next Friday, which is my space opera campaign. I have next month coming up more Adventures of Middle-earth, more Curse of Strahd, also more D&D with GOG. Storm King's Thunder is the one I'm doing over there. And I should say on the front with Adventures of Middle-earth that I'm going to be at CanCon. I'm an invited author to the convention that's happening in Ottawa, Canada, and we're actually going to be doing a live event with Will, our friend, former member of this show, Encounter Roleplay. Will, who lives in Canada, is going to be driving down for that, and he, Amal, and I are going to be playing live with Trendane, who's in chat, and Terry Tunes, the other player from California and Germany, respectively, Skyping in, or Zooming in, I guess I should say, in front of a live audience. So it's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to that. Amal's really a great player, and Will's obviously a great player, and the whole group are really great players, but just getting to see everybody live there will be really neat too. So that'll be happening next month, and it'll be good times. And I love Ottawa too. I'm a big fan of Canada anyway, but so it's going to be good times. That'll be happening next month, so you can check that out as well. Otherwise, though, you will see all of us here on Masters of the Dungeon with another guest star coming up next month. And I want to say quickly before I let these gentlemen go to thank all of you for making the first year of Masters of the Dungeon a really good one. This was the thing that I really thought would be a lot of fun to do, and it's really, I look forward to these every month because I get really great ideas from all of the guests that we have on here. And like everybody said, we all just take notes furiously about stuff that we can steal from, that we can use and integrate with our own concepts in our own game. So, but thank you so much to Dave and Askren for being with me on that journey for the first year and moving on to the next one. Greg, thank you again for being here. Chat, can we get some love for all of them? And gentlemen, I will speak to Dave and Askren next month, and Greg, I'll see you next month for Assignment Impossible as well.
Askren, I'm sorry about that. Greg, I got one thing.
Sure.
That you in the channel, would we be available to do? Has there been anything that's been talked about that for November?
Was that sorry?
A certain PAX Unplugged.
Oh, I have not, yes. I have not heard back yet. I hope that I will hear more from that possible convention that I may or may not have submitted a panel to involving perhaps some members of this show. If any of you are like, hey, I know the guy who runs PAX Unplugged, then, if you can maybe move our application to the top of the list, if we hypothetically did one, that would be great. That would be happening in November if it happens. So no, I have not heard back, but I would love it if it happens because it would be great. So hopefully, yes, is the answer to that. But that is, love to the room. Agreed, Briar. Same way. So thanks, everybody. Much love. And gentlemen, I will see you all next month. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Take care, guys.
Bye, guys. See you guys. Bye. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Okay. So that is going to do it for Masters of the Dungeon. It's not, however, going to do it for me because I do actually have some more content for you today, but not regarding this. So since I want to try to keep these things separate because it makes it a lot easier, I am going to just do this and then transition over like that and then do that. I love me some studio mode. So I am going to close up shop with Masters of the Dungeon, but do not leave if you're watching me live because we're going to be moving on to Lone Wolf HD Remastered in just a moment. For those of you watching Masters of the Dungeon shows, though, thank you all for watching this VOD. Thank you for watching a year's worth. This was episode 12, and next month we start episode 13 and year 2 of Masters of the Dungeon. So thanks to everybody. It was good times, and I hope that some of you who came for this will stick around for Lone Wolf. But now I'm going to stop the recording, not the streaming, but just the recording, and then we'll restart it again for Lone Wolf. And so to everyone watching Masters of the Dungeon, thank you all, and I will see you all next month.